Able to seal him. Here's the pass. Oh, what a catch! Leaping into the air and pulling it down is T. Higgins. Burrow facing pressure. Goes over the top. Wide open is Chase. And he splits the defenders for the touchdown. The Cincinnati kid. Hubbard's got a convoy. Chased by Andrews. At the 30, the 20, he will score.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, we are back in Florida. You are a little under the weather. It's been a tough couple days, Maan.
Yes, it has. It sucks. Got a bug. Slowly getting better. Still running a little bit of a fever, but I caught something in Cincinnati. I caught the Bengal blues because they lost, and I caught a bug. But it is what it is. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and let's hope we get a win Monday night. A lot to talk about.
A lot to talk about. A lot of Bengal news going on today, just within the last couple of hours that we are going to get to. Before we do, though, I do want to apologize to all of our listeners and viewers. Obviously, our Monday show was audio only. So if you guys missed that, please go on. You can find it on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. Go on there, download the Bengals Pulse. Maan, I thought it was a great episode we had on Monday. Unfortunately, we were filming from inside of my empty condo in Kentucky, and there was the internet was not very good. So we had a lot of video issues, but the audio came out pretty good. So again, if you did not get to see Monday's show or listen to it, please go on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify, download that show, give it a listen. Again, I love those shows directly after the game because we filmed it on Sunday right after the game. So you guys get all of that raw emotion from Maan and I. So again, if you did not get to check it out, please go on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify and download episode 80 of the Bengals Pulse. But we are back. We are back, baby. We are back. Video is working. Maan, before we go into that too, let's really quick just talk about how awesome of a weekend it really was for you and I. Again, we talked a little bit about it on the show for Monday. But again, it didn't come across on YouTube. So maybe some of you guys didn't get to hear it, but we just got to say, Maan and I both, thank you so much for all of our listeners and our viewers that came out this weekend and hung out with Maan and I. Maan and I are so humbled that we get to come and do this show with you every week. We absolutely love doing it. And to just meet with you guys and just talk ball and talk about our beloved Bengals is just an absolute blast. We had so much fun down at the Banks at the Holy Grail. Again, big shout out to Tim and Nicole from Midwest Best Barbecue out in Loveland, Ohio. Man, oh man, Maan, that was some of the best food I have ever had. And that will now become every visit occurrence, going by and visiting Tim and Nicole at Midwest Best Barbecue. You got to go check it out. The food is delicious. The ambiance is awesome. There's Bengals and red stuff everywhere. And Tim and Nicole are absolutely two of the best people you will ever meet. So thank you guys so much for your hospitality at Midwest Best Barbecue.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was great meeting them. For years I've been watching Ace and Zim and always see the video they play every episode of their show, and you get to see them, and I always wanted to visit, and I'm glad I got to. It was amazing food, great people, just wonderful hospitality. You couldn't ask for anything more. The wings were amazing. I'm not a giant wings guy, but they were absolutely phenomenal. the ribs they brought out, probably some of the best ribs I've ever had.
Oh man, they're so good.
I highly, highly recommend it. And, spend the time on the banks and having few people come up and talk to us and say they like the show. It's really humbling and it really makes you feel good. I just it was a great experience. I know the Bengals didn't win, but I had an amazing, amazing time, and I love visiting Cincinnati, and I can't wait to be there to go back.
Absolutely. And you got to meet Tim Crumry, which I'm so jealous. You ran into him at the stadium when I was down on the close to the field there. I got to meet AJ Green and David Fulcher. Just incredible. Just an awesome experience altogether. And I will say this: I am a wing connoisseur, man, and I'm telling you, no lie, Midwest Best Barbecue has got some of the best wings I have ever had. If you go, you got to try the Unos and you got to try the G-Funks. They are incredible. They will change your life, man. They are that good.
Yeah, they're good stuff. Very, very good. I think I downed 14 wings and about 3 ribs, and I could have had about 6 more ribs. It was a lot. It was worth it though. I'm not complaining. I'd do it again.
Oh my God, it was so good. So good. And again, just being able to go out and hang out with our guys, Dan Horde and Dave Lapham, and just getting to hang out with Travion Williams. Just an incredible weekend, Mon. Just a great time. And again, I think though our favorite part really is just meeting all of you guys, all of our listeners and all of our viewers, and getting to hang out with you guys. Just an absolute blast. So thank you for everything, Cincinnati. Mon and I will be back very, very soon. Mon, let's talk about some news going on today. A lot of crazy stuff in the last couple hours. Let's start off with the big news, obviously, and that is the infamous calf heard around the world, the most famous calf right now, and that belongs to Mr. Joe Burrow. Mon, he actually was at practice today in helmet, throwing the ball around. He didn't go through all the drills, but he was there and he was throwing the football. Good to see that, Mon. I think a very good sign there, and very interesting. He gets up in front of the media after practice and talks a little bit. Obviously, he's not giving a lot of information, which, we're used to that kind of thing from the Bengal players and the coaches. But he did say, Mon, that there's still some soreness. But if I were a betting man, Mon, I would say Joe Burrow is going to be suiting up against the Rams on Monday night.
I hope he is. I mean, my heart wants him to play. I want them to be smart about it. I can guarantee you they're getting medical advice from multiple people. Only Joe knows exactly how he feels. I mean, I expect him to tell the coaches he wants to play, but I think it's going to come down. I think the organization is going to make that decision. I'm hoping he does play. I'm encouraged with the fact that if the Bengals got the ball back at the end of that Raven game, Zach Taylor said he would have come back in. So I think this is going to be a lingering issue all year, and they just got to find a way to manage it. Muscle relaxers, just something to manage it. They're going to have to revamp their playbook a little bit, maybe unbalanced lines, maybe run the ball a little bit more. I know there's things they can do. I'm hoping he plays. I'm keeping my fingers crossed because they have a backup quarterback issue right now.
And I think, Mon, that is really, I think that's the telltale sign of all of this. It's not just that Joe Burrow was at practice today, but the Patriots come and they snatch Will Grier just in the last hour since we went on air, snatched him off the Bengals practice squad. The Bengals did not protect Will Grier, Mon, and I think that speaks volumes about how they feel where Joe Burrow is. Again, as I said before, there's no way the Bengals are going into this football game on Monday night with one quarterback in Jake Browning. I don't see a scenario where Joe Burrow is not playing in this football game. And I'll tell you this, Mom, I think a couple things that we heard within this last week. Number one is multiple doctors have come on and said that, this calf strain, really the chances of it at all dealing with an Achilles or anything like that. Some of the stuff that we heard before, it seems like the Achilles is safe. So I think that has a big part to play in this. If it's something that Joe just has to play through, then I think Joe's going to play. And I think a big part of that is right now is this Bengals offense is struggling and they need a win. And I think Joe Burrow understands that. And, this is no knock on Jake Browning at all, but I don't think any of us want to see Jake Browning leading this football team. Again, I don't care how good this roster is, but we're going to get into that backup quarterback situation in a minute, Mon. But how comfortable do you feel if the Bengals announced that Jake Browning is a starting quarterback on Monday Night Football?
Not very at all. I'm not very at all. I mean, I was on the record that I wanted Simeon, but then everybody, Simeon struggled in the preseason. So did Browning. But Simeon and Browning didn't play with any first stringers. No first stringers played in the preseason. Trevor Simeon played more snaps with second and third and guys that are undrafted free agents. Trevor Simeon had over 30 NFL starts. Was he a great quarterback? Absolutely not. Would you rather go into one game with Jake Browning, no NFL starts, or Trevor Simeon, 30-plus NFL starts? Forget the last 3 preseason games. Who gives a crap? He didn't play with any starters. I think they made a mistake a few weeks ago. That's my hot take. But it is what it is. I know you said you're going to talk about it. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. It's a nagging injury with Burrow. I just think the Bengals should have protected themselves a little bit more with these potential 2-3 game losses by quarterbacks. Look at Dak Prescott last year, missed a handful of games. They had a quarterback come in and just get them 3 or 4 wins. I hope I'm wrong. If Jake Browning does start, I hope he lights it up. I do. I'll never root against a Bengal player. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if he can do it.
Well, that leads me into my next question, Mon. You and I talked about this a little bit off air, and I've had an issue with this from the inception of Joe Burrow joining this football team. Is this Bengals team has never put any emphasis on the number 2 quarterback. And I'm sorry, I don't care how much you're paying your starter. You have got to throw some money out there for a backup. Again, you look at a lot of these teams out there, the majority of those teams have a guy that can come in, like you said, and get you a handful of wins. The Bengals really haven't had that. Yes, Ryan Finley came in and beat the Steelers, but Jake Browning, Ryan Finley, Brandon Allen. I mean, these are guys, Mon, that are not going to be able to cover a spread of games if, God forbid, Joe Burrow can't play. And I just think it's very disheartening that we're talking about this right now. And to be honest with you, Mon, I truly believe that if the Bengals have again, I don't want to throw out the name Andy Dalton, but if the Bengals had a guy like Andy Dalton or Gardner Minshew or I don't know, give me another guy. What's the quarterback from the Saints? What's the backup quarterback's name? He played for the Buccaneers. What's his name?
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. I mean, even a guy like Jameis Winston that can at least go out and keep you in a ball game. The Bengals don't have that. And I think that's one of the reasons why Joe Burrow feels forced that he has to play, to be honest with you.
We can't say he feels forced. We don't know that. He's a competitor. Jake, I agree with you 100%. They need to do better at the backup quarterback slot. I just like Dalton, Winston, these premium backup quarterbacks making $8-9 million. And the Bengals they don't pay those guys that. They don't pay him that much money. They won't do it. Jake Browning impressed me in preseason the last few years. He's athletic. maybe the playbook can open up again, because then Zach Taylor, there were some reports that the playbook has been dialed back a little bit due to the calf injury. But let's talk about a silver lining a little bit. The Bengals have played 8 quarters of football this season. 8. The first 6 quarters, they've only had 9 first downs. That's it. 9 first downs the first 6 quarters. The last 2 quarters of the game last week, they lit it up. They scored a lot of points. That offense started to look like it was gelling. Cincinnati had the ball 7 times against the Ravens. They scored on 3 of them. And it should have been a 4th one, but Joe threw that interception. So the offense started piecing things together. That's the one good thing I saw. So, the offensive line's gelling a little bit. Pass blocking's getting better. Joe started getting hot in the second half. Hopefully he can play. If he doesn't, hopefully Jake can pull us through on Monday night, that whiteout game. Maybe we can eke out a win against the Rams.
Well, again, and Eric always talks about, our guy Eric always talks about A.J. McCarron. He's out there. Nick Foles, who won a Super Bowl, is out there. A guy like Carson Wentz. I mean, again, I'm not saying these guys are incredible stud quarterbacks, but what I'm saying is we got to have somebody that can come in and win us a football game. And again, it's not that I don't like Jake Browning. Maan, I was a Jake Browning fan last year. I thought he should have been the number 2 quarterback last year. I'm extremely nervous that a guy that doesn't have any NFL starts right now is possibly going to come in and try to lead this team to 4 or 5 wins. And I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. Joe Burrow, in my mind, Mon, and this might be an unlike take. Joe Burrow's got to play in this football game. If there's any chance that he can play, he's got to play in this football game Monday night.
I agree, and I think he will. I think he knows it's a big game, prime time, national audience is going to be watching. Real quick, I want to get something straight. Some people on Twitter are sort of goofing on Bengal fans because they're freaking out about Will Greer. Nobody's freaking out about Will Greer going to the Patriots. We know he's not the savior. He's on the practice squad. But you know what? We need a third quarterback. Now, if he was going to get activated for the 53-man roster, the Bengals were going to have to make a move regardless. They were going to have to cut somebody to move him up because he has to be on the active roster to be the emergency third quarterback. Again, what you were saying a few minutes ago, maybe that is a good sign. The Bengals decided, hey, we could offer you a spot on the 53 or we could guarantee your salary. He decided to go to New England because maybe the Bengals are feeling a lot more optimistic about Joe Burrow and that calf. I hope that's the case. The bottom line is, Jake, we just got to go 1 week at a time. I know I sound like a broken record. We got to focus on the Rams. We got to get to the bye week with at least 3 wins. We got to be at 3 wins. If we're 3-3 at the bye, that's the equivalent of being 4-4 last year at the bye. Let's get to 3-3 or 4-2. That's optimal. At a minimum, we need to have 3 wins at the bye.
Agreed. And really, Mon, you look at this AFC, and I think this is one of the reasons why myself personally, I'm not in panic mode yet. I mean, the 0-2 looks bad. It's a different 0-2 than last year. And I talked about this on the show on Monday. This is a different 0-2, right? Because last year's 0-2, one of the losses was to an NFC team. So the Bengals were only 0-1 in the AFC, 0-1 in the division. Now, this year, we're 0-2 in the AFC, 0-2 in the division. That is a huge difference, Mon. Every one of those games in the conference and in the division are a huge deal. So this is a different 0-2 than last year. But I think one of the reasons why I'm not panicking is because you look at the AFC, and right now it's very interesting because the NFC, it's kind of flip-flopped, right? In years past, AFC was always this dominant conference during the regular season. And now we look at the AFC, there's only 2 teams that have not lost yet the first 2 games. And everyone else is either 0-2 or 1-1. There's some good teams that are 0-2 right now. There's a lot of good teams that are 1-1. So I don't think there's any reason to panic, but I agree with you 110%. the Bengals have got to put together some wins before the bye week. If they can go 4-2 or 3-3, I think we're in great shape, and there is no need to panic. But that's going to be, these next 4 games are going to be a huge tell. And I think maybe the Bengals are hoping, just like we are, that somehow Burrow can get through these next 4 games and be able to take a full week off and rest it and be ready to come back from the bye.
The Cincinnati Bengals need to do something about the playbook, and I'm not trying to critique the coaches. They need to revamp it. They need to adjust it due to the circumstances they're being dealt with right now, especially with Joe's injury. They need to go back in time to 2009, Jake. I know you remember that. The Bengals were on Hard Knocks then. They need to go back and start running the ball. They had unbalanced line. They would play with sometimes 2 extra offensive linemen. It was ugly football, but guys were just coming in and they were running the ball. They were limiting the possessions of other teams, and that's what they need to do until Joe gets healthier. He's not going to be 100% this whole season. He won't be. But let's do what the Ravens did to us last week. We had 7 possessions. There you go. Sorry. The whole game. 7. Okay? Yeah. And that's it. Let's do that to other teams. Let's run the ball. Let's play takeaway. That's going to help our defense. Our defense has really underperformed this year. I agree. But, they haven't exactly been set up to succeed either. 44 plays in one half our defense played. 44 plays in the first half of that game. They need to get off the field on 3rd down. Some of it's self-inflicted, but you know what? There's a lot of 3 and outs too. That's a bad precedent. That really puts your defense in a hole, because guess what? You're tired. And I don't care what anybody says, 44 plays in one half, that's almost a full football game.
Yeah.
And, so we need to – I know the Bengals aren't built to be a power run team. They better find a way. They got to try. They got to try to limit possessions. Let's do this. Let's get a win this Monday. Let's get a win next week against the Titans. The Bengals can do it. I was in Spaces today. Zim brought up a good point. That game, Ryan Finley game, on Monday Night Football, best called, best game plan for Zach Taylor. I agree. Ryan Finley he was a limited quarterback. No knock. That's one of the greatest Bengal wins I've ever seen. Very limited. But, buddy, they developed a plan. Pittsburgh was off balance. They couldn't believe it. And I think he had like 60 yards rushing that game. The Bengals are running all over the place. And, let's do that again. And, that's one thing Jake Browning might help us with. He does have some wheels. He does. I think he has a noodle arm, but he's got some wheels. And so we'll see. I'm excited about it. I'm concerned, but excited at the same time.
Well, listen, I think as a whole, this Bengals team, this roster is so good. I think it's time to let some of your playmakers carry the load, right? I mean, you basically is what you're saying is, let's let Joe Burrow let the other guys around him go out and win a football game. I agree with you 100%. I think eventually you got to take some of the weight off of Joe's shoulders and put it on all these other guys. Put it on the offensive line, Joe Mixon and these receivers, and you got to go up and make plays. You got to go up and go up for contested balls and make tough catches. You got to be able to run the football and get those tough yards. And I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see that from this football team. But yes, I'm very excited about Monday Night Football as well. Let's talk about Monday Night Football coming up here. The Los Angeles Rams come into town. We know this team very well. Obviously, 2 years ago, lost a heartbreaker to them in the Super Bowl. Again, I don't want to blame officiating for a loss, but I think I have nightmares about that defensive holding call against Logan Wilson. One of the worst calls, I think, in Super Bowl history. I remember being there in that north part of the end zone. I was in the area where there was like a lounge area. I was so nervous I left my seat for that entire drive, and having to watch that just up close was just absolutely heartbreaking. This Rams team, a lot different though. It looks a lot different than what we saw 2 years ago, and Joe kind of talked about that a little bit in his presser today. But some of the key pieces still there. Now, obviously, the one guy that just absolutely broke our hearts, besides Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, who might be top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Cooper Kupp, I think, are the top 3 receivers in the NFL right now. Cooper Kupp on IR with that hamstring issue, but we still see Matthew Stafford. We see a very different wide receiving core, Mon. One that has a couple of young guys that are going out and making a lot of plays. Puka and Tutu is who we're going to see on Monday. Puka and Tutu, both young guys, but I think Puka right now, did he break the rookie reception mark in the first 2 games of a season or something like that? He's done something crazy, Mon. He's got like 30 receptions, I think. So still a tough receiving core. Again, Kyron Williams, their starting running back. You look at the offensive line. Again, Rob Havenstein, who obviously played against the Bengals as well, but some other guys that we really haven't seen offensively. So this is a different Rams offense, but it's been very successful the first couple of weeks of the season. And Matthew Stafford looks like right now he's in mid-season form. He looks like the Matthew Stafford that we saw a couple of years ago. So this offense is potentially very, very dangerous, Mom. What do you think about this Rams offense?
Yeah, Matt Stafford obviously is the key. Super Bowl winning quarterback. Unfortunately, Super Bowl winning quarterback. The rookie from BYU that you mentioned has played really well. Has set a rookie record. Currently, they're 9th in the NFL in points scored. They're 12th in points allowed. Total offense, they're 2nd in the NFL. They're averaging 406 yards a game. 23rd in rushing, about 90 yards a game, but 3rd in passing. So Matt Stafford has had a good first 2 weeks of the NFL season. They played San Francisco last week. They had the 49ers on the ropes, arguably probably one of the top 3 teams in football. This is not going to be an easy game, but this is no excuses. This defense has got the rebound. I like the matchup, Jake. I think the Bengals defense really struggled these first 2 weeks. We know Cleveland has their number. We're still trying to figure out why. It hasn't been pretty every time we play the Browns, but last week Lamar Jackson played a great game. The defensive ends, that defensive line was sort of just in containment mode, and when they did rush, he burned them. Matt Stafford is not a scrambling quarterback, so they don't have to worry about that. I think the defensive ends are just going to go nuts. I think the top tackle for the Rams is injured. I forget his name, Hogaboom, whatever his name is, the tackle. I don't think he practiced today. So that could help Hubbard out and Hendrickson. So I think it's a whole different approach. Yeah, Stafford is a great passer, but I think the Bengals can get to him. The Rams have had a lot of success. This defense has really got to step up. I think we'll probably see the best of the Bengals defense so far this week on Monday Night Football.
Well, I think so. You look at Puka real quick, 25 receptions in 2 games, Mon, almost 300 yards. So he's averaging right around 130-something yards a game. He doesn't have any touchdowns. Again, Matthew Stafford's only thrown 1 touchdown, but has almost 700 yards passing in 2 games. So a lot of yardage. They do have 4 rushing touchdowns, like you said. Not a great running team, but I'll tell you again, with Tutu and Puka, both of them have played very well. Almost 40 receptions between the 2 of those guys, and almost 500 yards between the 2 of those guys, Mon. So definitely a deadly combo that the Bengals are going to have to shut down. This is a team, you shut down Matt Stafford, and this Rams offense is going to struggle. I think we know that. You said it. It all starts with Matt Stafford. And when he is not on his game, this offense struggles. Defensively, let's look at this defense, Mon. The guy that broke all of our hearts, besides Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald is back. He is healthy. He is a force to be reckoned with once again. He looks like the old Aaron Donald. He is a guy the Bengals are going to absolutely, Mon, have to stop. They have to stop Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald dominated in the Super Bowl. Now, this was a different Bengals offensive line, obviously, in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a different one than he saw, but we have got to stop Aaron Donald. And that's what's a little scary, right? When you have a guy like Joe Burrow right now that is playing on, basically one leg right now. It's scary when you got a guy that has that kind of pass rush ability from the inside or the outside in Aaron Donald.
Yeah, he's a generational player, first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, what else can you say about the guy? He's a dominant player. The Bengals are going to be ready for him. I really think, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the last two quarters of last week's game, the Bengals really played a lot better. Reminded me of the Bengals of last year. I think everybody's gelling a little bit. Our starters did not play at all in preseason. So these first two games have all pretty much been a quasi preseason game for him. And I think the offensive line is going to be ready for him. Of course, he's going to get his plays. Something about some quick stats here on the Rams. Total defense this year through the first two games, they're sixth in the NFL. They're giving up an average of 272 yards per game. That's really good. They've played two good teams, Seattle and San Francisco. Rushing, they're 24th. They're giving up 122 yards per game on the ground. Let's hope the Bengals get that and a little bit more. Fifth in the NFL in passing yards, only 150 a game, which is that's impressive. I'm hoping Joe Burrow, or whoever starts at quarterback can find some big plays and get that fifth number for the Rams a little higher. I'd like to see Chase and Higgins and Boyd maybe potentially get some big plays this game. It's going to be tough. The Rams defense has been really solid. And, we just talked about Aaron Donald. They got a lot of good players. It's not just him. But you can see by looking at those stats, they're sixth in the NFL in total defense, only giving up 272 yards per game. So the Bengals got to be ready, and I'm glad it's at home.
Well, let's talk about this Bengals offensive line because I touched on it a little bit a minute ago, and the Bengals offensive line, the one that Aaron Donald absolutely destroyed in the Super Bowl, a lot different this year, Mon, a lot different than last year even. This Bengals offensive line, Joe Burrow has only been sacked 3 times this year. Last year, Mon, in the first 2 games, Joe Burrow was sacked 13 times last year in the first 2 games, only 3 times this year. And a big reason of that, Mon, is Orlando Brown Jr. has been absolutely dominant. He has been money well spent. He has been what we are looking for at that position at left tackle. Finally, the Bengals have a guy that can protect the franchise. Tell me a little bit about this Bengals offensive line, Mon, and how impressed are you the way they have played? I know we're 0-2, but we've played 2 very good defenses with very good pass rushers and only given up 3 sacks, Mon.
Yeah, Jake, we got the eyeball test. We got Pro Football Focus, and we have a bunch of other people that do, good jobs of grading offensive line play. And they're really all over the place. Pro Football Focus, overall run block efficiency, pass block efficiency hasn't been that good when it comes to the Bengals offensive line, but they have given Orlando Brown really solid marks at left tackle. Every site, every person that grades these offensive linemen have been really giving Volson poor grades. I'm hoping he continues to improve. He started off a little slower last year. I still believe highly in him. He's a young guy. Karras played really well last week. They're going to get better. We know what they can do. We've said this 500 times on the show. That 10-game win streak last year, a lot of it had to do with them gelling and becoming a cohesive unit. Jonah Williams hasn't really been a big liability. I think he got beat on that sack last week. He gave up 1 sack. Some people say it's the guard's fault. The eyeball test showed me it was his fault. It is what it is, but he's played pretty decent at right tackle. He's the least of our worries. Let's put it that way. but I think they're playing better. I'm really optimistic about, like I said, those last 2 quarters. If Burrow didn't throw that interception, I think we're talking a Bengal victory. Cincinnati, the Ravens have a good defense. You know that. All of our listeners know that. That Bengal offense was moving the ball. They were moving the ball because they were really stagnant in the first half. They flipped that switch, and I feel really good about that because I think that light bulb came on. If Burrow can play, I think we're going to win. It's going to be a hard out for it's going to be hard for the Rams to beat us Monday night.
I agree 100%. I think I do. Well, let's we're going to get to that in just a second, our predictions, but let's talk about our division guys real quick and predict some of those games, Mon. Last week, I think we both picked the Steelers to beat the Cleveland Browns, and we were both right on that one. So still 1-0, Jake, for the season. But let's talk about this week because we got some interesting games with our division opponents.
Let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question. I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Open up debate. A lot of people talking about it. Was the Mika hit dirty?
Yes.
Or was it football? Was it football?
Yes. It was dirty. It was dirty. And I'll tell you why. A lot of times you call that play like a high-low where you have the runner stood up, and that's what we saw. We saw the runner stood up, and again, when the runner is stood up and you go low, and the legs aren't able to, the legs stop moving. That's when you have those type of injuries. And I don't care what Minka says; he is full of it. That was as dirty as I have seen. And again, I don't want to get on a soapbox about this, Mana. I'm really pissed that you brought this up because it's going to be hard for me to stop talking about it. The Steelers are one of the dirtiest teams in the NFL, and they have been since I can absolutely remember. They don't ever get called out for it. When you look at through the past, all of the dirty there have been more rule changes because of Pittsburgh Steeler players than any other player from any other team. There have been so many changes in the NFL and the rule books because of Steelers' dirty hits. The Giovanni Bernard hit back in 2015 by Ryan Shazier, that changed the way that they looked at leading with your head. That he was a dirty player. These guys, Mon, are just they're almost, it's almost like they're coached to be dirty. But yes, Minka was a dirty hit.
Now, I think it was reckless. I think it was really absolutely reckless to be torpedoing down like that. I like what Nate Burleson said. Him and Ryan Clark had a back and forth. I thought what Nate said was very, thoughtful and thought out. And I don't think Minka wanted to hurt anybody, but it was reckless. And you're right. If you do that to an offensive lineman, it's a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. But, of course, Chubb's not an offensive lineman. I don't know, man. It was if you're going to hit the guy, hit him from the knee up, hit him in the waist. Don't go torpedoing like that. It's horrible. I hated to see that, but let's get back to our predictions.
I will. Just let me say this one more thing. Because I know we got to get back to predictions. Let me just say this really quick. That play is totally different if you're in the open field and Chubb's legs are moving, right? It's a totally different play. Minka said, well, you guys have never had to tackle Chubb. Well, again, Chubb wasn't running full speed. He was being held up, right? That's what makes it reckless, Mon, is that it wasn't in the open field. He didn't have to dive at the lab. I understand trying to tackle a 240-pound running back is not easy going chest to chest, but do that in the open field when his legs are moving and he has an opportunity. Don't do it. And Ryan Clark is arguing, well, how are we supposed to tackle? We can't do this. Dude, you know good and well what is reckless and what is not reckless. And I'll be honest with you, Mon, that reckless play might have ended Chubb's career. And that's a shame because as much as I don't like the Cleveland Browns, Chubb is an incredible player for this league. And it's sad that happened.
Bengal fans will remember this player named Jordan Shipley, a wide receiver from Texas.
Mhm. Yeah.
He was never able to play again against the Broncos. He was torpedoed like that. It bent his knee. It just shredded his knee. He never played. It was an unnecessary tackle. It was an unnecessary hit to hit him that way. That was in the open field, though, too. I mean, I think there's football etiquette. I'm not an NFL player. I just thought it was reckless. I don't think Mika wanted to hurt him, but it was a reckless play. And you're right. The Steelers have a history of it, but enough of that.
Typical
Okay.
Pittsburgh Steeler football. Okay, here we go, Mom. Titans at Browns. Who you got?
It's going to be a tough game for the Titans. I don't think the Browns are a good team, but playing at home always just, there's extra energy for a team there. I think the Browns really struggled last week. I think the Nick Chubb injuries I think they're going to rally behind their young running back from Cincinnati. I'm going to take the Browns in this one, 24-17.
All right. I am going to take the Titans because I don't think the Browns have the leadership in their locker room like you and I have been saying for the last couple of years. I don't see the leadership in the Browns locker room. I think the Titans come in and I think they pound this football right down the Browns' throat. I have the Titans winning 24-14 against the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, the Cleveland Browns, 4 out of their first 5 games at home. Come on, NFL. Seriously, that's ridiculous. All right, here we go. Steelers at Raiders, Mon. Who you got?
I got the Raiders in this one playing at home. I think home teams have an advantage. I don't think the Steelers are that good. I know they had some big plays last week. I'm going to have the Raiders winning this one 20-17.
Okay. I also have the Raiders. I have the Raiders winning 24-17. And I'll tell you this, Mon, it doesn't matter how good the Steelers are and how bad the Raiders are. The Raiders have the Steelers' number. They beat them time after time after time. We've seen it. Bruce Gradkowski leading the Raiders in Pittsburgh to a victory. This Raiders team just always ends up beating the Steelers, and they'll do it again at home. Here we go. Colts at Ravens, Mon. Who you got?
I'd love the Colts to upset them. It's not going to happen. Ravens are going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty comfortable. I think it's going to be like 27-10. Ravens.
Okay. I know the Ravens are going to win this football game, but Mon, I have got to talk this into existence. I've got to talk it into existence. I'm probably going to take the L on this one, but I say the Colts win on a last-second field goal, Mon. 24-21. The Colts will upset the Ravens. Please, Colts. Please, I got to talk this into existence. Please happen. All right, Mon. So I have the Titans, I have the Raiders, and I have the Colts. You have the Browns, the Raiders, and the Ravens. All right, there we go. Here we go, Mon. The big one. Bengals-Rams, Mon. The Bengals have got to get off the schneid. Who you got?
Cincinnati, 34-20.
Wow, 34-20. I'm going to say Cincinnati 31-14. The Bengals offense finally gets going. Joe Burrow has a good football game, and this team comes out and wins the Ring of Honor. Again, congratulations to 2 of our favorites, Mon. Boomer Esiason, Chad Ochocinco going into the Ring of Honor. The whiteout game, man, oh man, it's going to be awesome to watch. I wish we could have be there, but not going to happen. These Monday night, these primetime games are hard for you and I, Mon, to get up there. So it's going to be a fun weekend of football. Hopefully the Bengals get back in that win column finally. And please, let me just throw this out here. Please, Cincinnati Reds, there's 8 games left. Please, 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 please give us the playoffs this year, Reds. Please give us the playoffs. That loss to the Twins yesterday, Mon, was absolutely brutal. All right, here we go, guys. That's another edition of the Bengals Pulse. If you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. Make sure if you go on there and listen to to Maan and I. You give us that 5-star review. We very much appreciate that. Follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9, on Instagram, the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. Follow Maan on Twitter at TheFireMon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens9. And as always, guys, make sure you check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Wincinnati Podcast Network. He is Maan. I am Jake. Hoo-day, Bengal fans. Let's get that first W, baby.
See you guys.